Hello, Serie A fans, and welcome to another episode of the Total Football Analysis Serie A podcast. My name is Daniel Proc, and I'm joined by football analyst Steve Coleman. How are you, Steve?
Yeah, morning. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm also joined by professional center back for North Carolina FC, Alex Comzia. What's up, Alex?
Doing well, thank you.
And of course, we're also joined by EPL podcast host Chris Mumford. How are you, Chris?
Fabuloso. Thanks for asking.
Before we get into match analysis, we have to give a shout out to Gianluigi Buffon, who just broke the record for Serie A appearances this weekend with 648 appearances in Serie A, surpassing Paolo Maldini. Just for your curiosity, the other guy on the podium is Francesco Totti with 618. The other goalkeeper on pace to break this record at some point in the future will be AC Milan keeper Gianluigi Donnarumma. He currently has 170 appearances in Serie A, and he's only 21 years old. So that means that he technically needs about 13 seasons to beat the record, and by then he'll be 34, which makes that kind of a feasible record to break. What do you guys think about Gigi Buffon's 648 appearances in the Italy's top tier?
Well, by then, Donnarumma will be somewhere else anyway when Milan don't get European football for too long. So that's difficult to break that record.
Don't say that.
But for goalkeepers, I'll just pass on to Chris.
No, I feel for him because I know how he feels every morning when he wakes up and gets out of bed. You know, it's like every game feels like the next day is like you just had a car wreck. You get up, you warm up. I think the key thing with him is he's traded his speed and quickness for experience and forethought, right? I mean, thank goodness the young guys don't know how to translate that experience into anticipation and acting on those hunches. So I also have to imagine in the clubhouse, he's got to be, well, he's a legend. He's got to be a great clubhouse leader. And I think that's probably why they keep him around.
Yeah, absolutely. His presence must be of immense value for the Bianconeri. Bianconeri, who won 4-1 in the Turin derby this weekend. Dybala scored again. Ronaldo scored again. But let's get into the goals and let's look at the way they happened. So the first goal happened in the 3rd minute. Dybala basically dribbled through the Torino defense and then finished with his left foot. Alex, I wanted to ask you something. Was it too easy for Dybala to score that goal?
Well, it's exactly what we would expect from Dybala to take on the defenders in the way he did. Obviously very shifty, very creative, very tricky with his side-to-side movements and the manipulation of the ball. I do think Janko, number 4, went down too easily, which allowed Dybala to cut to his right and eliminate him as a potential blocking path or an interception. When you go down, you got to make sure you get the ball because you don't have enough time to get back up and react and get behind the ball. It's just too late. So then Dybala cuts to his right, and then he goes back to his left. I believe the second defender gets a foot on it, but it's just not enough. And Dybala gets his first goal. Really exceptional dribble. But again, in my opinion, Janko goes down too easily. It needs to continue to move his feet and stay in front so he can block that passing lane. Or the shooting lane, excuse me.
Yeah, I don't want to pick on Janko, but he was also kind of responsible maybe for Juventus' second goal. There was a quick counter-attack led by Ronaldo, who then assisted Cuadrado, and Cuadrado went on a 1v1 versus Janko and scored. I think too easily. Janko should have stepped on Cuadrado to just stay closer and maybe prevent that shot from going toward the goal. But let's talk about the third goal. Cristiano Ronaldo finally made it after 42 attempts from free kick with the Juventus jersey. He finally scored a screamer on free kick. He also became the first Juventus player since 1961 to score 25 goals in one season in Serie A. Guys, I think the last goal by Cristiano Ronaldo on free kick was that 2018 World Cup, a goal against Spain.
Oh, yeah. When it really mattered, that one.
They were giving him a hard time for just taking all the free kicks and Juventus and not putting them in the back of the net. Fourth goal by Juventus, it was a cross from the left side, and there was an own goal by Gigi, which is not Gigi Buffon, but Gigi, defender of Torino, spelled DJY. Alex, you're a defender, and probably you have scored own goals at some point in your professional life. What is the thought process on that occasions?
Well, I'm lucky enough not to have scored an own goal in a game, but in practice, it definitely happens. Yeah, not a great own goal here by Gigi, because there's different types of own goals. There's an own goal where you really didn't have much control. It hits you in the face and it deflects, and the keeper's already diving one way. And there's own goals like this where it just seemed like a beautiful finish, Daniela. You could definitely say it as a striker.
Inside of the foot, beautifully placed.
Yeah, and you can attribute that to, in my opinion, Gigi gets a little nervous that Higuain is running very hard, making a hard run right in behind him. And he doesn't see him because he's on his blind spot or right behind him. So he doesn't adjust and move his feet well and adjust his body position to a position where you're going to clear the ball. In my opinion, he should have shifted his shoulders to the left so he can send the ball out exactly where the cross came from or higher up the field. And then hit it with the inside of your foot, but not turning your foot towards the goal. Keep a strong, locked inside of your right foot and just hammer it out the other way. So it was definitely not great. You know, at that point the game was done, but an early on own goal can sometimes be very unmotivating and can hit your confidence as a defender for sure.
Yeah, it was absolutely a great finish by Gigi, and we also saw great finishes in the game between Napoli and Roma, which finished 2-1 for Napoli. Steve, why don't you unpack that game for us?
Yeah, interesting game, this one. More so because I was expecting something a little bit different from Roma. They played, obviously, in the first round of games back in November, they played with a 4-2-3-1 against Napoli and nicked a 2-1 win. So it was quite surprising to see Fonseca come out with a very medium style block with a back five rather than a back three. And it was obviously to try and counter the threats that Napoli had, especially down that left-hand side, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. But yeah, interesting move from Fonseca. Shows the tactical flexibility again of the league and people adjusting to play against an opponent rather than actually continuing on in their own way. So I think in the league you have a pretty standardised group of teams who don't change for anyone. They keep doing what they're doing, and Napoli are obviously one of those. And then you have teams underneath them and around them who like to mix it up and change to suit the opponent rather than with their own necessary kind of style, I guess. So they played with a flat three in midfield as well, Roma, and that was to counter obviously the wing backs or the fullbacks coming higher up the pitch. So it wasn't, to be fair, I don't know what you guys think, but it wasn't one of the better games I've seen this weekend.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it got lively in the second half with some great individual skills, both from Napoli and Roma players. But like you said off the air, probably both teams didn't really have much to play for, given their table position.
No, I think there's 12 and 15 points between these two and Atalanta. Obviously, Napoli got beat by Atalanta in the week, which opened up the gap even further. But they're pretty safe from a Europa League perspective with the Coppa Italia win. So I don't think they're overly bothered about whether they finished, 7th, 8th. I'm not sure it really has too much of an impact. But I think as the game went on, you definitely saw things within the game that they used to create chances later on. So, for example, with Roma's back five, they were quite comfortable having the ball in front of them. With Napoli and their short passing game, a lot of stuff that they do is in front with the odd runner coming from kind of a third man style situation. But Gattuso actually used something a little bit different, and he created a couple of chances in the first half with this, where a runner came from deeper in midfield. So there's a chance quite early on, the 18th, 19th minute, where The Roma back five were loaded up by the Napoli front three, and the runner came from much deeper into the top line from a forward pass from Rui in behind, and created two or three really good chances with those moments where, when you play with a flat three in midfield, the chances are that they have to get across and protect the advancing fullbacks, the dangerous spaces, obviously, as we've spoken about, in front or behind your wing back. So when you play with a flat three, they tend to slide across and deal with the fullback as he advances. But then sometimes you forget about what's actually happening in your zone in midfield. So while you're sliding across, it's difficult to track runners going beyond you. Now, that's okay if you have enough numbers to absorb the runners. But when you send your fullback or your wingback out to defend, Mario Rui, for example, they sent a wingback out to press the ball there. It creates a 3 versus 4 situation in the back line for Roma, and then you have a runner coming from deep. I don't know what you think, Alex, but who deals with the runner? Is it a midfield person to deal with it, or is it one of the back four now to deal with that runner?
Exactly. It's usually a coach's decision, and it depends on the formation completely. And it gets pretty heated in certain discussions because between players, you got him. No, you got him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's free running straight through. So again, I think it's a coach's decision.
It was your F man.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. And I think as the game wore on, and Napoli, obviously, they're so good at dragging one team to one side to hurt them on the opposite side. The more they did that, the harder it was for the Roma three to get across in midfield and protect the advancing fullback, and then you start to end up with a 2 versus 1 in the wide area, or you get Insigne, for example, darting inside to overload on a back three situation. And they certainly picked Roma apart, and the stats about that, I think 21 shots with 11 on target in the end for Napoli, whereas Roma only 7 shots with 3 on target. So for Roma, I think if you're going to play in that sort of way, and Fonseca obviously would have known this during the game, you have to be able to threaten at some point and throw your own punches. And I think when you have somebody like Dzeko at the top, he's a very, what I'll call, a fixed pivot position in a counter-attacking moment. And what I mean by that is he's not overly mobile these days. It's not kind of the peak of his career now. He's certainly still a dangerous striker to play against, but he's not going to run in behind, or he's not going to threaten, beyond the ball so much. So they used him more of a find him quickly on the counter and let Kluivert and Pellegrini especially feed off of him. Pellegrini had a great chance, if you remember, in the first 25 minutes or so, where he got a knockdown from a direct ball out from the back on a counter. Dzeko knocked it down for him, and he carried the ball probably 40, 50 metres into the Napoli third and fired just wide. So those type of moments were indicative of their threat, and their goal, obviously, from Mkhitaryan came in the same way. Ball into Dzeko's feet, he held off Koulibaly, switched to the opposite side. Mkhitaryan acres of space, Kluivert running beyond him, drags the defenders away, and he finishes with a great shot into the bottom corner. So I think you can see elements of the tactics that both coaches were obviously using. Gattuso, we know very well the way he wants to play, but Fonseca's use of the counter-attack in this game obviously was successful. But in the end, the game's won by a fantastic finish from Insigne there, and it just shows how valuable he is to Napoli, and how much he's loved by that club and those fans and those players as well. It's a brilliant finish from nothing, really.
Can we talk about the position from which he scored that curler? He was almost outside of the lateral edge of the box.
Yeah. Moving backwards.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I know that those shots are the most vexing goals because they only have a 0.04 XG. So that's a 4% probability of going in. But as a keeper, it's mind-boggling, because if they chip that right with just amount of curve, it almost feels like this much space is like that much space for the ball to go into.
And Chris, it's a 4%, but when you see players like Insigne, Del Piero, or in the Premier League, Salah, when you see them striking those shots, it looks like the percentage is way higher than that.
No, I would say Mahrez is right in that category. He likes to cut in and hit those curlers, and it's just like, uh-oh, we're going to have a problem here. Speaking of which, in this game, my good friend Sam Brotherton thinks that I'm too hard on the defenders and not hard enough on the keepers. I think that first goal, it's Kai Home. He took the cross in at the 5 or 6. I really felt like the Roma keeper, he sat in at the 3. And if a ball's coming in on the 5 or 6, you've got to eat that up. You've got to sweep right there. So
defender.
It's a brilliant ball from Rui.
Yeah.
There's one just before half time that he delivers where they hit the crossbar. Milik hits the crossbar from a similar sort of distance. Fantastic ball again. The writing was definitely on the wall, but again, it's the runners from deep. The back 3 are absorbing pressure. They're not necessarily dealing with runners coming from deeper positions.
Yeah,
it's a really good finish. Should he save it as well? Is the next question. It kind of bobbles through his legs and stuff, and
I like his chances. Instead of sitting on the 3 waiting to take a shot on you, is going out and eating it up. As you guys know, I'm a fan of Ederson, and that would have never happened. Ederson probably would have
just volleyed it. He'd have just volleyed it to Jesus and had counted off it probably. So
I just think we need to appreciate the timing, the perfect timing
it was
of Callejon's run and the cross at the exact perfect time.
Yeah.
Right? And you look at the Roma defender where Callejon runs from deeper, like you said, Steve.
Yeah.
And it's tough to defend because he's already picked up speed. By the time he realizes that he's run off his shoulder, it's too late. The cross is coming in already. He's already got an advantage. Plus the Roma defender, the reason why he's not shifting over a little bit to the left and blocking off Callejon's path is because he's too worried about leaving too much of a gap between himself and I think it was maybe Smalling, the next Roma defender over. I forgot who it was. And he's worried about that. But you have to, at one point, forget the fact that you want to stay compact as a 3 or a 5 in this case and realize where is the threat coming from? Who's coming into the box? If there's nobody in the box and one guy's running off your shoulder, it's okay for you to leave a little bit more of a gap just to bump his path.
Yeah.
And
I also think that their natural inclination to play a little bit hard at the pitch has cost them a little bit in this game because, like Alex says, there's two or three balls there that have got in behind a back 5 who are trying to defend crosses from obviously a dangerous threat. But if you go back and look at the video, the body shape of the back 5 are facing the ball, opens themselves up to an issue with balls in behind where they have to scramble. Alex says there's runners coming from deep. They've already picked up pace. Alex, if you set that line from those 2 chances, even 5 yards deeper, the threat nullifies itself a lot more. And in a game where you want to have the ball in front like they did, it's unusual for them to try and set that line higher and allow so much space in behind from those wide areas.
Let me ask you the question on the Mkhitaryan goal. Was that during a water break? Because I didn't see the Napoli midfielders there at all.
Chris, I was about to say that.
And I will tell you this, if someone takes a shot from 25 yards out, as a keeper, questions are going to be asked, especially if it's on the ground. And I did see it bounce, but I just feel like, all right, were Napoli, were they making dinner reservations already? Because I didn't feel that there was the energy to stop that goal there.
I think it came from a sustained period of pressure again from Napoli, and once you get that, you get high fullbacks, wide players inside, you get a dominance, and you can get away with that if you have Koulibaly against a smaller centre forward who he can outmuscle. But like I said earlier, you fix Dzeko in a position where Koulibaly's tight, wants to try and win the ball off him, he doesn't win it, then you've got an issue on the weak side as they break quickly beyond Napoli, who are trying to get back, but they're not. We're in a title race, need to get back and defend this shot.
Exactly. And as a defender, the defenders are doing everything well. They're closing the space. And Mkhitaryan, obviously, it's an amazing shot. And he doesn't even have to beat anyone. He just has to shimmy and then hit it. But you cannot tell me that the defensive midfielders, at that moment, it's a 100% sprint, get behind the ball, win it back, and we'll go again. But again, like you said, maybe they just count on their defense. Maybe this didn't matter as much. If this was a Champions League final or the Serie A final, maybe they would have made that run. I don't know. But you can look at them, they're like 60%, like, oh, he's not going to score from here. Oh my gosh, he did.
And guys,
that any chance in the first half's the same. exactly the same. Where he runs from deeper,
Mhm.
they try and delay it. Happy for him to shoot from distance, back themselves, but yeah, it's a great finish.
Now, like you said, Steve, it was a pattern. Like these transition moments for Roma happened multiple times during the game. I am a fan of tactical fouls. So if I ever get close to a guy running at that
100%.
speed, I bump in the back, get a yellow card, and resettle. But honestly, about this game, I'm very happy about Callejon scoring again. Since he's got that Arthur Shelby from Peaky Blinders. That look.
He found his doppelganger, his lookalike.
He definitely stepped up his game. He's more of an evil striker now with the mustache. Another important game that happened this weekend was Lazio against Milan. Lazio lost 3-0, taking probably everybody by surprise. But there are some reasons why I think that happened. For instance, Lazio couldn't count on Ciro Immobile, the league's top scorer. And Inzaghi decided to play Luis Alberto, who is an attacking midfielder, as one of the front two strikers in Lazio's 3-5-2. Obviously, he's much different of a player, right? Luis Alberto is more of a guy that takes up playmaking duties in the final third, versus Immobile likes to make deep runs, test the defensive lines with his direct and strong movements. So I think that what helped Milan is that the Milan defense was always able to have Lazio's play in front of them, because there wasn't really someone testing them with vertical and committed runs. So Alex, would you agree that that makes for a much easier game in terms of controlling the strikers?
Well, yeah, it's what you want as a defense. You want the play to be in front of you, and that's individually, you want the player to be in front of you, and you either win the ball back or force him backwards or sideways, worst case scenario. But you don't want them going forwards. And it depends again. If you have the players, if you have a Ramos and Varane, and you want to play a high line, that's a different story. They can track back and make those crazy runs, and then you can really press teams high and cause problems for them and win the ball up higher. So again, it depends on your personnel. It depends on what are your qualities of your center backs, your full backs. What result do we want? Are we winning? Are we losing? Are we tied? Is this game, is it the second leg and we're up 3-0? It all is it's very contextual. So, but in general, you want the play to be in front of you because you can see everything happening.
Yeah, except for a couple of runs in the second half by Lazio, they really didn't bring many offensive threats to the Milan goal. And AC Milan was also lucky, I would say, in the first half to get the 2-goal lead. The first goal was deflected. It was a shot by Çalhanoğlu. The second goal was a PK converted by Zlatan Ibrahimovic, 38 years old. And then in the 60th minute, Rebic put the game to sleep with the third goal. Chris, I wanted to ask you a question about a goalkeeper that I think is very much underrated in Serie A, and we're talking about Lukas Skorupski from Bologna. And this past weekend, Bologna won away at San Siro. They beat Inter 2-1. And the man of the match was undoubtedly Skorupski. What do you got on him?
Well, he is one of the top Polish keepers. He's 29 years old, 6'2", and really more of kind of that traditional goalkeeper, agile, super quick. And that really comes in handy in things like PKs. And the save that he had towards the end of the game really got him the 3 points versus
Sanchez. Yeah.
One. I will tell you that in terms of expected goals, he's supposed to have saved 36, and expect to have had 36 goals scored against him. He's given up 41, so he's actually on the wrong end of that. That it'll remain to be seen what happens in the next few games, because we've got 8 or 9 matches. He certainly has the talent and the speed for it, but right now he's trailing a little bit when it comes to Serie A keepers.
Yeah, and if you guys didn't watch the game, if you guys that are listening to this pod, so basically, Inter had a PK, Lautaro missed it. Well, Skorupski saved it, and then I think it was Gagliardini from Inter who got on the rebound and then struck the ball again, and Skorupski had a double save on that. On that occasion, Alex, if you're the defending team and you see someone who's not the PK taker getting on the ball before one of the defenders, what do you make of it?
It's a lapse of concentration and it's actually a lack of confidence in your goalkeeper to make a save. You need to be blocking out the forwards as a defender and not even be thinking about the PK, and just have a trust and confidence in your goalkeeper that he will save it, and you need to get there first. Never let a forward get there first, because usually the forwards are not the ones that are, banking on a rebound, unless it's yourself, right? But defenders need to bank on a rebound. Defenders need to bank on a rebound and show that they have their confidence, not by words, but by their body language. So that's my take on it.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're a defender and you shield a striker as you're on top of the box, the ref will not call a foul on you. But if it happens the other way around, if it's a striker shielding a defender, that will be a foul, right?
Yeah, and I've also done the stepping on the toes.
Okay, you're learning.
Pushing in with your elbow, any little technique you can do.
Wait a minute, Alex. I just want to warn you. The statute of limitations was you should be speaking to your legal counsel before you admit those things on the podcast.
Danny's already done it, talking about tactical fouls earlier. He's already in the mix.
I know these guys are going to be in prison by the next podcast.
We have a sneaky mentality here.
Hey, I will tell you, as a keeper, sometimes it's better to be lucky than it is to be right. He made and maybe he picked it off right on, but the ball was about 20 inches away to his right. And then he did exactly what he was supposed to do on a deflection. He stood up, and thankfully that striker tried to hit the ball through his chest rather than tapped it into the side panel. So there's one thing, there's death that you can count on, taxes, and strikers trying to knock the ball through the goalkeeper. That's sure things in life. So,
yeah, two terrible finishes, both the PK by Lautaro and the rebound by Gagliardini. But let's move on to some match previews. So again, we're gonna have two waves of games coming at us. One will be played between Tuesday and Thursday, and the second one will be played over the weekend. I would like to spend a couple words on Milan against Juventus. Will be played Tuesday, July 7th. Milan will play with their typical 4-2-3-1. They're going to probably feature the same 11 that beat Lazio, except for Çalhanoğlu, who's out with injury, and Lucas Paquetá should play in his place. Milan look to continue their streak of 4 positive results, and they now sit 7th in the table. They're 2 points below 5th and 6th place Roma and Napoli, respectively, and they're trying to social distance themselves from Hellas Verona, that are now 4 points behind them. Juventus will play with their typical 4-3-3. Rugani will step in for the Ligt because Juventus is really torn apart by injuries. Chiellini is out, Demiral is out, so Daniele Rugani will feature next to Bonucci. And also Paulo Dybala is suspended. So Gonzalo Higuain will start next to him. Alex, do you have anything specific to say about Rugani? He doesn't get many appearances in Serie A because obviously he's got better defenders in front of him. But what do you make of him?
Just like you said, he has better defenders in front of him. I don't think there's anything from a Juventus perspective that's particularly that impressive about him, and he doesn't need to be that impressive. He just needs to be not noticeable and do his job and fill in. And as a 4th string center back, that can actually be quite a task at times because you don't get the reps in. It's not the same as hopping in as a striker who has not been playing for a while. The pressure, in my opinion, is bigger because your mistakes will be under a spotlight. You can get 9 plays out of 10 right. If Rugani gets that 10th play wrong, it's his fault. So I don't think there's anything particularly we need to watch for him. He just needs to have a solid, under the radar performance, in my opinion.
The pressure is especially high if you sit in the middle of the best defense in the league. Juventus have only conceded 26 goals against, but they're gonna now have a tough run, because in the next 2 weeks they're gonna play Milan, Atalanta, and Lazio. So Milan and Atalanta are probably the two teams with the best momentum in Serie A, and then who knows, on July 20, when Juventus will play Lazio, the gap, which is now 7 points, could be reduced to 3 or 4, and then maybe that game will become a decisive one. But would you guys say that this week is the decisive one for Juventus to actually make a statement about the title?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think notwithstanding their next game, Juventus Atalanta's a must watch for everyone out there for a start, but also one that they can't afford to slip up on. I think the league could be done and dusted by the end of this 3-game swing, or it could be right back on, and Lazio right back in the mix. It's certainly a pivotal week. As the games keep coming, it's hard to keep up sometimes, but it's definitely a pivotal week.
Daniele, I'm curious to get your take. That Milan Juventus is going to have some of the best strikers to have ever played on the pitch. What do you see out of Ibra's game now, or Ronaldo's game now? Do you feel that Ibra's in particular has evolved very much in the last few years?
Well, I think that, like Steve said about Dzeko, right? These strikers are aging, so they're more pivotal. They take up more pivotal roles. They are a big presence in that they're intimidating for the opponent's defenses. So just having them on the field is a huge plus. I can't really put Ronaldo in the same pot, because his physical skills are just too good. He still looks young. He's been scoring for 5 straight games now. So it's gonna be interesting to see two legends, Zlatan and Cristiano, against each other.
Yeah.
Who do you fear the most as a keeper?
Well, Today, of course, I fear Ronaldo. But on any day, I'd probably fear both of them. But what
if you face them on the street?
Well, I probably fear a 6'5" man, which would be Ibra, right? So, what I'm really struck by is Ibra is still able to get so much respect. There's a phrase we use here in the States where whenever Ibra walks into the room, sits at the table, that's where the head of the table is, right? And I just am really struck by how he can still really mess with defensive shapes where he can just drag entire defenses over, even though he doesn't seem to be that super fast, right? But he knows how to make that run at the right time and get the ball and bam, get it to the right person. And a la Kazam, he's got an assist as he did last match. So
I think he's such a focal point for Milan. Obviously the result against Lazio, he comes back into the team. It's no coincidence that they all of a sudden got a lot more attacking threat. But if you're trying to play into his feet, someone's got to protect that pass into his feet. Otherwise you open up vulnerabilities with him coming off the front and dragging defenders with him. So like Chris has just said there, he's constantly playing with defensive shape, comes off the front to receive. He's not going to run in behind these days, but if teams are going to play, with a higher line, he can play around corners, he can flick the ball on to runners from deeper. He's so pivotal to what they want to do, even at his advancing years. He's still got a lot to offer them for sure.
Absolutely, and especially if you surround him with dynamic players, I think that's a good mix. But on Thursday, we're gonna have another very interesting game as Hellas Verona host Inter. Steve, can you help us see what we should expect from this game?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say you can expect a response from Inter. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine Conte was overly pleased last time out in that game. Getting beat in their last one, but he won't have a repeat performance of that. I thought they were a little bit toothless in that last game, and again, it just shows if teams are prepared to be patient with Inter, sit in their shape and defend deeper, then you negate a lot of the threat of the front two and the wing backs if you're prepared to deal with crosses and that situation. So I don't think you'll get that from Verona, but you'll get a matchup of systems, 3-5-2 versus a 3-5-2. So that'll cause some interesting matchups across the pitch. Verona's still pushing hard for Europe. There's a gap, but a couple of results either way. With some difficult ones in front, and that they could overturn that. I think the gap is 6 points between them and Milan above them. So they're a difficult team to break down, and they also, like we spoke about last week, they play forward with the highest percentage of their passes. So it will be a very vertical game, this one, as in to try and play into the top line quickly and use runners going off Lukaku for sure. But it'll be an interesting one and a good watch. I think this one, two very energetic and physical teams. I think it'll be a good one to watch, this one.
I agree. And you mentioned the wings. I'm interested to see the duels between Kandreva and Lazovic on one side and Young and Faraoni on the other side. Also, we're going to have this week could be decisive in terms of relegation battle. We're going to have Sampdoria against Udinese. They're currently sitting more comfortably than they were probably 10 days ago, but still not safe. Job not done yet, absolutely. What should we expect from this game, Steve?
Yeah, the relegation battle, like I said earlier, everything's coming thick and fast. So that relegation battle has probably gone from 8 teams to 4 at the moment. And I say at the moment because the couple of teams at the bottom are not necessarily picking up huge amount of points. So even though teams above them are getting beat, they're not closing the gap themselves. Genoa and are not, and Lecce especially are the two that can get themselves out of it if they pick up points. But yeah, Udinese and Samp got an interesting week ahead of them. Just when you thought everyone was getting dragged in, Samp pick up 2 important wins and move away. And then obviously the Udinese win in their last game against Roma with my main man Kevin Lasagna scoring again. So I think this one will be a battle of attrition. I think you'll find two teams who want the result but don't want to give away mistakes and allow opportunities too much. Ranieri obviously is such a tactical master that he'll have something in mind for this game to make sure they don't get beat first and foremost.
Exactly.
Lasagna, Lasagna's saving Udinese at the moment, so he'll have to counter that threat from all different areas, like we spoke about last week. He scores all sorts of goals, with his head, off his left-hand side, stronger side. But he's got so many different types of goals in him, which is saving Udinese at the moment. So, but Stamford becoming so much more flexible under Ranieri as well. So I think that's going to help them in the long run. Both teams have got good goal scorers at the top, obviously, to help. And at this stage, it's a massive threat. But they've both got games in between, in the lead up to that one. Udinese definitely beat Spal. Spal are hopeless at the moment. I think they get a result there. So it'll be an interesting battle. It's not one for the purists. I don't think the same as Torino-Brescia, which is going on as well this week. They won't be games for the purists who want to watch fantastic players at the top end of the table, but they'll be the ones with the most on it for sure. Torino-Brescia is a really important one as well this week for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about Ranieri. It seems like he found that balance with the 4-4-2/4-4-1-1, and he's also leaving last year's top scorer Fabio Quagliarella on the bench, but it seems to be working right now. Towards the goal of not relegating. And Torino at home against Brescia, I don't think there's much to say except for it's a must win. Brescia is currently sitting at 19 points. Sorry, they had a positive 19 points, 21 because they won
21 points.
They won this past weekend, but Torino can really afford not winning this game. It's too important. Steve, in terms of
they're 31 points, Udinese 32 with Samp as well, so Genoa behind them 27, so it's still tight, but with games coming so quickly, it could change so quickly for better or worse for all of those teams.
And as these teams struggle, are fighting to not relegate, there is a team from Serie B who already managed to achieve promotion. I'm talking about Benevento, the team managed by Filippo Inzaghi, and they achieved. They were able to get promoted to Serie A with 7 games to spare, and they are returning to Serie A after 2 seasons in Italy's second division. Steve, what you got on Benevento for us?
Yeah, they're a really fascinating team in obviously that Serie B. They haven't lost a game since November. They lost at the weekend, having already been promoted, but they hadn't lost a game since November. Unbeaten in 26, only conceded 18 goals in the league. That was only 15 before they got beat 3-0 at the weekend. I think they were still in the bar, maybe, that one from the weekend, a little bit like Liverpool. So 15 goals in 30 games is a unbelievable achievement from a defensive unit. You said earlier Juventus were 20 something goals in their 26 games.
Yep.
Yeah, 26. So Benevento 15 to get to the championship position. But the interesting part about that is they don't have a single player in any of the defensive stat top 10s in the league. So as a collective, they're really, really difficult to break down in their 4-4-2 block. They're very much zonal, as is Inzaghi's probably experience and time spent at big clubs in the late 90s, early 2000s. So they defend really well from crosses, very direct type of league, Serie B. So whoever tends to be the best from set pieces, which they are very, very good from set pieces. 21 goals, I think, from set pieces this year, out of their goals scored. But if ever there was a team made in the mold of their coach, it's definitely Benevento. You know, there's a saying where I come from that you can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. And if you get enough balls into the box, with enough numbers into the box, sooner or later you're going to create chances to score. And a lot of the goals they score, if people out there have seen them play this year, a lot of the goals they score are messy, scrappy, rebounds off the goalkeeper, deflections off defenders, and they're the first ones to pick up that. Yeah, it's so Inzaghi-like, and all he's done is flip that at the other end of the pitch and made sure that they're the ones picking up those deflections and blocks and clearing them first. So they fully deserve to be where they are. They've run away with that league. They're just so much better than everybody else in that league without having too many standouts. It'll be interesting to see what they do recruitment-wise next year to stay in Serie A. They obviously had a pretty tough time of it the last time up. I think 23 games without a win. Goalkeeper scored a header to pick up their first point against Milan in the last minute to stop the rot there. So he's got some work to do. He's got to recruit well in the off season. But yeah, it'll be really, really interesting to see how they go in a big time, having done so well.
Yeah, and if you guys want to learn more about Benevento's style of play, I highly suggest checking out Steve's piece on Serie A analysis. He breaks down Benevento in possession, out of possession, and in all of the phases of the game. I wanted to bring up an interesting fact about Benevento. So Roberto Insigne, who's the brother of Lorenzo Insigne, plays for Benevento. So next year, we're going to have 2 pairs of brothers going against each other, because we're going to have Filippo Inzaghi on the bench of Benevento going against Simone Inzaghi on the bench of Lazio. And in terms of outfield players, we're going to have Roberto Insigne going against Lorenzo Insigne. Can you guys guess who is the other pair of brothers who are currently playing in Serie A?
Playing? Lukaku must be.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that. Sorry, there's another one then. Sorry, yeah, you're right. You hacked the system. Yeah, Lukaku from the left back from Lazio and Lukaku, striker of Inter. There is another one. Chris, I expect you to know that.
Oh, wow. You put me on the spot. I'm drawing a blank.
It's the Donnarummas. It's the Donnarummas, obviously.
There you go.
Yeah.
Chris, I told you that I expect you to know it because I know how much you hate Donnarumma.
I don't hate him. He's at 21 years old. He's more goalkeeper than I ever was, no question. But it's it's a style and preference thing. I like the smaller, more agile, high distribution capability keepers. But I'm very confident that, if he's got 5 years under his belt at 21 years old, he's going to learn how to read things as fast as Buffon does at this point very soon.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, he's probably going to want to break Buffon's record of Serie A appearances if he doesn't get traded, because he's giving some problems to
it's going to be hard to break it from the Premier League.
It's the big if.
No, I think he's going to be able to pull a Michael Jordan, take 2 years off and play baseball and still come back and break the record.
We'll see if he does that. I'm sure that the Milan fans will not tolerate another tantrum from the young keeper. But guys, thank you for being with us today. That's it for today's Serie A show. Thank you, Steve, Alex, and Chris, for your perspective. I highly suggest tuning in for this week's games, because they're going to be decisive games both for the title race and for the relegation battle. So enjoy it. We will be back next Tuesday, as always, with another episode of the Total Football Analysis Serie A podcast. Ciao.